we got a special guest for you guys today. I got Anthony and Cameron from the Infinite Wealth Podcast. Excited to have these guys on. We've been chatting a little bit. We chatted about all kinds of weird stuff. Smoking out airports and T-shirt changes and all kinds of fun stuff before the call. But let's get into it, guys. Tell our audience exactly. Let's give them an elevator pitch. Tell them a little bit about Infinite Wealth Podcast, what you guys do, and then I want to get into the nitty gritty a little bit.
Yeah.
First, let's just clarify. You mentioned smoked out airports.
Smoked out airports. I mean, come on. I like to leave the audience guessing, man. Don't give the whole story. No, I'm just kidding. You can tell.
Okay. No, but we were just sharing some stories when we were in the military, and I was in a smoke unit, and all we did was smoke out airports. But
I mean, I was in the smoke unit too, and we smoked out some airports. But I mean. No, I'm just messing around. For those of you that are listening, there's actually a smoke unit in the military, and these guys actually smoke out airports, and that's not a reference to anything. That's actually
Not that it's not.
Yeah,
but it could be.
But all right. So I digress. Go ahead. Do your intro.
So I would say with the Infinite Wealth Podcast, and actually learning more about you, Joe, it seems very similar. Right? We named it Infinite Wealth for many reasons. One is infinite, that we want these strategies to be taught to not just the individual and the next generation, but also the generation after that. A lot of our clients are building wealth, and we want to make sure that the next generation can handle it. And a big part of that is education. Like when we talk about wealth, it's not just dollars. More importantly, it's cents. Right. You can always make more money. Right. But if you don't have the knowledge or the financial fortitude, it's not gonna last long. And so that's kind of more of the values of our firm. And kind of what we do is we incorporate a lot of the teachings of Robert Kiyosaki. Right. We use his definition of financial freedom is get your passive income more than your monthly expenses. What we like to say is, I want my pie to be bigger than me each month, right? And then part of the way we do that, we also complement that with Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, which is an infinite banking concept. And we feel by putting those two teachings together, it can allow you to get that financial freedom, ideally in less time and with more certainty.
I love it. So question is, can we cover the gamut of that in 30 minutes? Can we educate the listeners on what those two things are? I'm sure you've done this before. You've done podcast interviews dozens of times, right?
Yeah.
So how do we take them through that? How do we take them through the high level of what that looks like so that they can take away something tangible from that today?
I would say the first step is people need to clarify their goals.
Yeah.
Right. Not everybody wants to create passive income. Right. But the problem is a lot of things, what we're taught is not to create passive income, but to accumulate wealth and really store it somewhere and just hope it's going to be there in the later. Right. But what we want to do is we want to create financial freedom now. We want to be able to spend time with the family, to do that travel, to do the service, and the time. Our time is so valuable, right? And we want to, instead of exchanging, time for money, we want to ideally be able to help people exchange their money for more money, right? So the first thing is got to be the goals, and the goals need to be clear. Once you have those goals, if your goal is to create passive income, then you need to start making financial decisions that support that. And part of that is, where do you store your money? What do you invest in? Right? If you want to create passive income now, you can't do that in a 401k unless you want to wait until you're 59 and a half to start doing it. So that next step is, okay, now that I have my goals, where is the best place to put my money? Right. Then you need to start getting educated. Right. I mean, if you want to create financial freedom, you just can't be that passive investor I mean, the non-intelligent investor, where all they do is speculate, put their money and let somebody else control it. We want that knowledge of the dollars and the cents. You got to get educated on what you are doing. And then where infinite banking comes into play.
Yeah, infinite banking comes into play is where you put your money, right? And so that's hugely important because, like Anthony mentioned, is a lot of the opportunities that people are trying to create, you can't do it in most of the traditional accounts. And so infinite banking is the strategy where you're keeping your cash inside kind of a properly structured whole life insurance policy. I'm sure you've heard of it, Joe, your listeners have. And what we like to tell people is that it's not your mama's whole life, right? Yep. Most people say, hey, my mom and dad had whole life insurance. It's completely different from that. A properly designed whole life insurance policy is designed for cash value and not for death benefit. And once you get the money in the policy, right, that's just the beginning. What we tell people is that's probably 20, where you get maybe 20% of your results, right, is from the product, right? Just putting money in there. Really what you want to do is focus on the process, and that process is going to generate 80% of your results. And that process is infinite as far as what you can do. And that's where we also got the name as well is, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to identify and we're going to find opportunities that we can use to create passive income cash flow now today. And, you know, it's endless as far as the opportunities go. And that's why we always focus, like Anthony just said, is we got to start with education. We're never going to invest in something that we're unfamiliar with. We're never going to try to turn our money over to somebody to do it for us, right? Is we want to have somebody have enough education and confidence in wherever they're putting their money that they know that there's a very high likelihood that this is going to happen as a result. And so that's really kind of what we're doing as far as kind of building this. And man, I don't know about you, but just having that conversation about money with kids and family is something that never really took place for me when I was growing up. It was one of the big three that you never talked about. And so, right. And so for us is, man, you know, it's probably most rewarding. We get excited when we hear somebody else that is passionate about legacy, is because, man, one of the things that we do is we want to talk about not only securing, you know, financial freedom for us or for our clients, but man, is how do we pass that on, right? How do we create this? How do we bless, you know, not only our children, but our children's children? And so those two are the things that we get excited about.
So, brother, I love everything you guys are talking about right now, because like, this is what I live and breathe all day long. This is what I talk about. Right. But like, not only is it interesting to me, what you just said, the last thing you said, which is we're not taught about it as kids, and, you know, we don't get out of school and we don't learn about it. But I have coaching clients who are in their 40s who are successful by every mean. Like they make wild income. They don't have any idea what you just said.
No, none.
Making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and have no idea what you just said. Right. So I don't even just, you know, you can't even just pigeonhole kids who aren't being taught this. It's people who live their whole lives that aren't being taught this. And I think it's one of the biggest tragedies. You know, we had the American dream for 100 years, which was go buy a house and pay it off. Yeah. And that shit's so long gone and dead. It's not even funny. Like, this is the next American dream. Like, we have to be understanding the leverage of passive income and the infinite wealth strategy and life insurance. How do we, let me detract a second here. Yeah. Devil's advocate, right? Yeah. Passive income is just not sexy, right? People want passive income, but they don't want to learn and educate themselves on how to get passive income. So let's say you have someone comes to you and they have an extra $20,000, $30,000 a year to play with, right? What do you recommend first? Where do you guys go with that first, right? Do you go right to whole life? Do you split it up? Do you do stocks? Do you do bonds? Do you do real estate? Like, where do you guys go with that first?
Okay.
No, we're both jumping at it. Right? I'll go first, right? Is number one is, if somebody comes to us, is like Anthony said, man, one of the first things, right, is we got people that call us. We have marketing material out there, so people will call in. And the first place that we always start with somebody is, what are your goals? What are you trying to achieve, right? And if somebody comes to us with, dare I say it, kind of that passive mentality of, hey, I'm not sure where to go, man, that's not completely uncommon, is because people just aren't typically, what I want to say is that people aren't exposed to investment opportunities traditionally, right? The conversation that most people have always had with investments is somebody else always comes in and says, hey, give me your money. I'm smarter than you. Come back and check on it in 6 months and I'll tell you how it's doing.
Yeah.
And so that piece right there is, we have a lot of people that call us and they say, man, I've got an extra $20,000, $30,000 a year. I just don't know what to do with it. I get excited about those types of people because, man, there's so much that somebody can do. All we need to do is present them with some opportunities. And so we'll start with their goals. Hey, if it's financial education or whether it's time, spending time with family, at the end of the day, it all comes down to income, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, we've got to have some sort of income somehow. And so what we do is we introduce them to different opportunities to create cash flow. And we don't do it for them, mm-hmm. right? We don't say, give me your money, we're going to create passive income on a monthly basis for you. We say, hey, listen, let's talk about maybe some of your risk tolerances. Let's talk about some of your experience. Let's talk about other things in your life that you may have done that may translate well over into this. And so not all the time is it real estate. A lot of times, maybe it's a franchise that mm-hmm. somebody comes to us and they've got a corporate skill set that they can translate over into buying a franchise and taking off with it. And so it's really just kind of working with somebody, helping to identify some of their strengths and then highlighting some opportunities for them.
And what I would say is one thing I want to just to clarify, that we want people to invest in things that they are knowledgeable in. Hardly anybody I know is really truly knowledgeable in stocks.
No,
there are a few people who do the research and are following it and are investing because of experience and knowledge. What's happening now, a lot of these, they're just throwing it at a stock or a mutual fund and just, everything's going up. So they look like rock stars, but things will settle down. And I think that time is going to be sooner than later. But with a lot of our clients, when they come, as Cameron said, they don't really know much. And I kind of say like they have blinders on. Like they only think, well, one thing I can say for retirement is my IRA or 401k. They never thought about real estate or storage units or apartment complexes, or like I'm flipping raw land in the middle of nowhere. I never would have thought about that, yeah. But it's profitable, right? But what we try to do is open people's eyes to help them find passive income streams that they care about and are passionate about. But when all of those are going to take some capital, it's going to take money, whether it's real estate, doing the down payment, or you're flipping raw land, or you're doing a franchise. All that is going to take capital. And we want you to invest in those. What we're saying with the infinite banking concept, if we were just to kind of put it in its simplest form, the way we design the policy, that's not the investment. If anything, that is a sound savings account, right? That's going to be protected from creditors. It's going to grow tax-free, and you have access to it. And what most investors are doing, they're storing. We got to store our money somewhere, right? In between deals, or we're saving up for the down payment. If we want to buy a house every year for 20 grand, we got to save the money somewhere. The problem is where most people are doing it in somebody else's bank, and then they save up that 20 grand, and then they use that as a down payment, but they break the compound interest curve, right? They drain their account, and that money stops earning, and then they save up more money to buy house number 2, and then they drain their account. The problem is they're breaking the compound interest curve every time. And the way that I like to explain it with IBC is kind of like using a rewards credit card for investing. Like, Joe, do you use a rewards credit card?
I do.
Okay. Now, why do you use that credit card? And why don't you just pay cash?
Because you're getting the rewards on top of it, the points.
Yeah. You're going to buy it anyways. By adding one extra step, you're going to get some rewards, some bonuses, miles, cash back. If you can understand that, you can understand infinite banking. Because all we're saying is we want you to buy, when we buy that real estate, instead of paying cash, we're going to run it through a policy. And by adding that one extra step, then the reason why we use life insurance, as Cameron said, is not because of the death benefit, but more importantly, when we do this correctly, you can continue to earn compound interest on the money in your account, even though you're using it. So what's happening is we're never breaking that compound interest curve. We're still buying the real estate, right? We don't want to hinder that, but adding this little extra IBC a nugget allows you to create some bonuses. In this case, instead of miles, it's going to be money in the form of compound interest.
I love it. I love it. My personal, everything you just said, I would add to that. I call it my forced savings account. Right. So like, real estate investors habitually, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this. Like, we don't save money, right? What do? We put money in a savings account until there's enough money in there. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, I can go invest in something else, right?
Yeah.
I can buy another property. I can invest in a new tool for my company. I can, buy a new thing, right? So like, so we're always like saving it up, draining it. So it's like my way of hiding money from myself and creating another investment vehicle, which is also passive. And now I have that money to borrow against to create more opportunity. So, for me, and then of course the death benefit, it's just like the cherry on top.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I think for people listening to this, and again, every time I explain this to somebody, they're like, how does that can't be true. It can't work that way. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
It's, but it's amazing to me that, especially younger entrepreneurs that have access to this and don't take advantage of it because it's cheaper when you're younger.
Oh, it's cheaper and you have it in place much longer, right? The longer these things are in place, the better they get. If you look at something that's in place for 20, 30 years, it's mind blowing, right?
Yeah. And Joe, what you said is exactly partly how I felt when I first heard about this. It's like, this can't be true. This doesn't work. I mean, and at that point I owned a CPA firm. So I worked with a lot of typical financial advisors, and I would go to them, tell me why this doesn't work. And they couldn't give me a valid reason why it wouldn't work. So I tried it. I put my toe in the water and I got a small policy, and it worked exactly like Nelson said. And then with that comfort, then I was able to get policies on my wife. I have policies on my kids. I just became a grandfather. He's getting a policy. And what we're going to do with him is we're going to start buying him real estate. We're funding the policy. And then when we have enough for a down payment, we're going to use that cash value to buy the rental property. That cash flow we're going to use to repay the policy. So no money's out of his pocket. Then when that loan's paid off, he has one cash flowing asset. And we never broke the compound interest curve. His money is continuing to grow. So you know what we do after that, Joe? Well, I say we hit the repeat button, but Cameron, if you listen to our podcast, you know he's a big fan of Paul Mitchell and loves his hair. So he always says, rinse and repeat. But all we're doing is we're just having our money in motion, right? And in between deals, got to sit somewhere. So we have it sit inside the policy. But now when my grandson, I don't know, we had this conversation. My daughter-in-law was talking about colleges. I didn't have the heart to tell her, my bet, he ain't going to college. Right. But that's a whole nother discussion. But we're going to teach him about creating passive income. So he's going to have some when he's in his 20s. And the goal will be is for him to start taking over, managing his properties, and then go buying some more. So he'll have the ability, ideally, to work because he wants to, not because he has to.
Joe, let me add something just there at the end is what you'd referenced was kind of your when you came across IBC, kind of how you felt is whenever I talk to somebody that's kind of new to IBC or looking at it, what I like to emphasize is the difference between facts versus opinions. Right? When you look at IBC, kind of what you were bombarded with was everybody's opinions about whole life insurance, right? for me, I had a very similar experience. I read Nelson Nash's book, and I went and I started diving into it, and I went looking for the facts, and I had the facts that lined up that said, this is exactly how it operates. And actually there's a contract that comes along with the policy that tells you exactly how it's going to operate. And I could have cared less what everybody else's opinion was about this thing, because they had not read the facts that I had read. And so when somebody is new to it, what I like to emphasize is, hey, are you getting someone's opinion, or are you getting facts, right? And there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on. And I think it's, again, it's something that's not talked about enough. I think it's one of those vehicles, especially for entrepreneurs, as they're growing their wealth and their business. It's one of those things that it should be a requirement. It should be a requirement for people who are growing their business to look into these type of things, because, we spend so much time and effort to try to scale and chase the next deal and do the next thing. And this is just one of those things that should be happening behind the scenes automatically. It should be like a thing that you have to do, like a certification to get to the next level. It's one of those things that should be implemented. All right. So we've been at it for a little bit. I can't let you go without asking you guys, because I ask all my guests these things. Talk to me about one of your favorite failures, or one of those times where you guys hit some obstacles, hit some roadblocks. You guys have grown, you've scaled, you've created this awesome business, this awesome podcast. Give me some hangups that you've had that maybe have actually helped you launch, or helped you, you've overcome them, and you saw the back end of that thing.
Cameron, you've had so many failures, so why don't you pick one?
Joe, it's a long list. Where do I
pick
start?
One? Just pick one. It might not be hair related. I mean,
No, those are all successes, Joe. What I would say is the first thing that comes to mind is as far as failures in investing is, man, I bought raw land years ago, right? This is back in probably 2005 or 6 out here in Las Vegas. And I bought raw land solely on the basis of appreciation. Right. I didn't know any better. This is before I was introduced to kind of infinite banking. And
half my listeners just gasped as soon as you said that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, right. And and I didn't know any better. Right. Again, I was making money. I was looking for places to put money, and I was looking around like, man, you know what? Land prices are going crazy. I'll just buy this. And so I got burned on that. Right. I bought a bunch of raw land, and it was appreciating for 2-3 years. And then all of a sudden the market just fell out from the bottom of it. And that was probably the single investment that really made me realize, number one is never take opinions, right? Somebody's opinion. You better understand what you're investing in. And number 3 is you've got to invest in for multiple benefits, right? Yeah. So maybe appreciation, in my opinion, should not be number 1 priority, but maybe it's number 4. But when you invest, you should be looking at, cash flow, right? You could look at tax advantages. You could look at depreciation opportunities. You should be investing for all those, not just one of them.
Well done, Cameron.
Love that. It's a good one.
Lee, I've made my share of poor investments, and really the biggest piece was I didn't do enough education. I didn't do enough due diligence. But I'm going to shift gears here. One of the things that I think that I've learned over the years is, and partly because of that, because I got burned, I started delaying my action. I was wanted to read, wanted to learn, but part of learning is doing. And what happened is I took too much time learning and spending time in, well, you heard paralysis by analysis.
Yep.
And doing that, I have missed on some great deals. So I've kind of learned you're never going to know all the answers. You have to do some form of due diligence to feel secure, but in order to get your goals, it's going to require action. One of my biggest pet peeves is when someone says that knowledge is power. And I say knowledge is the potential of power, right? A lot of people are overweight. We all know how to lose weight. And so the knowledge isn't the issue, it's the action. Are we willing to make the sacrifices to get the goals that we want?
Yeah. I love that. And I say this all the time, but life happens for us, not to us, right? So these big challenges that you're talking about, I hope the listeners understand this. They happen because you're out there taking action, but you have to take action to get the success, right? So like you buy the raw land, you learn the lesson, and you had all these other amazing successes as a result of the lessons learned buying the raw land. If you didn't buy the land, you might not have had any the subsequent successes. So I think it's important, again, to your point, Anthony, is that our listeners are learning that take action along the way, learn the lessons as you go. Like I've lost millions of dollars in the course of making millions of dollars. It's just part of the process. It's part of doing it. So awesome. So what do we miss, guys? Talk about what you guys got coming up for events, or how the listeners can get in touch with you. Obviously, subscribe to the Infinite Wealth podcast if you got some value out of today, but how can the listeners get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with us is our website, infinitewealthconsultants.com. You can go there. We've got a bunch of resources listed. Podcast would be the second best way, Infinite Wealth Podcast. We're on all the major platforms. And just briefly, half of what we talk about is infinite banking and kind of our philosophy on money and laying that foundation. And then the other half is us kind of bringing on opportunities to just expose people to ways to create income now today. What else? We got Instagram. What's our Instagram? Infinite Wealth.
Infinite Wealth Consultants. We're just finishing up our summer series called Your Path to Financial Freedom. Unfortunately, that is the last day is the 24th, but we do have an online course. What we're big on education. We want you to know what it is you're doing, whether it's infinite banking or how you can use infinite banking. We've created all sorts of videos. We've done the math. And so we have an online course, and that's at the infinitewealthcourse.com.
Mm-hmm.
And in there is going to be the videos from our summer series, where we talk about one topic I think your listeners may be interested in is we did the math on investing in real estate inside an IRA, or what if you took the money out, paid the tax, paid the 10% penalty, and then invested in real estate? Who's going to have more cash at the end of the day? One thing we're big on is taking these myths, kind of like, or these opinions, like what Cameron had talked about, and we're turning them into facts. So we're going to talk about that. We're talking about creating a business out of raw land. We've had turnkey real estate. Again, all sorts of different ways. What we're trying to do is we want to take your blinders off. Just know that there's a lot of ways to create wealth. You just need to be open to those ideas, learn about them, and then take action.
Take action. So
Joe,
true.
Yeah, Joe, I'll add this to that is that if your listeners go to infinitewealthcourse.com, that's where they'll find our course at. And if they go through there, they'll see that we typically charge about $500-$600 for access to that. As a thank you, what we'll do is we'll actually give your listeners free access to our course. So if they go to infinitewealthcourse.com/legacy blueprint, we'll make sure we make sure we'll put that in the notes. They can kind of jump into our course. They can look around and kind of separate the facts from opinion.
There you go. There you have it, guys.
The good thing is I thought we stopped giving it away, but but again, we're all about education.
Yeah,
I love it. Just want to help people learn.
Perfect. We'll put it in the show notes, guys. Make sure you take advantage of that. Go in there, check out the link, check out the education. Make sure you guys, if you find value in this, I know you found value in this. If you listen to the end, there's absolutely 10, 20 golden nuggets in this podcast today in the half an hour we share with these gents. Make sure you share it. Make sure you send it in email, send it in text message, send it in messenger, send it carrier pigeon. Make sure you tell people about it. 5-star review, and comment what exactly your takeaways were within this episode today. These guys brought the heat. They definitely brought the value. Make sure you subscribe to their podcast and go in there and check out the free download. Anthony, Cameron, thanks for joining us today, guys. You guys brought it, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Our pleasure. And awesome. Go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.
Absolutely.